Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this Committee of Adjustment hearing to order. Just before we get started this evening, I'm going to go through the hearing protocols for tonight. We have two applications for two different properties that we'll be hearing. Following, or just before we get to that, a little housekeeping rules. If you have cell phones, if you can please put them on mute or turn them off. And if you do come up to ask any questions about a particular application, please address questions through the chair and not directly to the person that is being asked the question. The first order of business will be to ask any committee members if they have conflicts of interest with any of the applications on the agenda, following by requests for deferrals or withdrawals of applications that are on the agenda. The Secretary Treasurer will then read out each application noted on the agenda with a brief description and staff recommendation. Applicants or the agent for the applicant will be asked to come forward to the podium on my right, your left if you're in the crowd, introduce themselves, be allotted a short overview to explain any details or additional information they wish to with regards to that application. Members of the public, members of the committee will then be afforded some opportunities to ask the applicant any questions that they might have regarding the applications. Then members of the public will be asked to come forward if they have any questions with regards to the applications and try to keep their comments to within 10 minutes. They can come up again to the podium on the right. They can state their name and address for the records. And they must present all questions or comments that are pertinent to the application in that time frame. Persons making a presentation may not necessarily be allowed to return again to speak to the same application. Following all comments, the applicant will be afforded some closing comments if desired. The committee will then present a decision in the form of a motion. The motion will be discussed and voted upon. If a vote is tied, the motion will be defeated, and new motions will be made until a decision has been reached by the majority. Notices of decision will be provided to those persons who leave their name and address in writing with the Secretary Treasurer. There's a sign-in page at the back of the room for that purpose. For anyone viewing online, if you wish to email Taya, our Secretary at Taya, T-A-Y-A, period, T-A-R-A-B-A at portcolborne.ca, or you can call 905-228-8124 immediately following the hearing to leave a message requesting the same notice. So with that, I will ask if there's any conflicts of interest this evening. Eric.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I have a conflict on item A22-25-PC, the vacant lot on Stonebridge Drive, as I, Eric Beauregard, have an indirect pecuniary interest as my employer is the agent for the applicant.
Thank you. Anyone else? All good. Is there any requests for deferrals or withdrawals of applications this evening? Yes, you can go to the podium on the right.
Through the chair, I'd like to request a deferral for the minor variance application for the vacant lot on Stonebridge Drive, item number A2225PC.
Very good. Committee members, questions or comments? No real questions, but all in favor of deferral? That'd be carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, Madam Secretary, the remaining application on the agenda this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On tonight's agenda, we have one consent application. Notice of the application was circulated to the public on November 25th. The required agencies received notice of the application on November 13th. A recommendation report for these applications was prepared by planning staff and made publicly available on December 5th. All correspondence received by December 5th was addressed in the recommendation report. Those interested can review the recommendation report online on the city's website or in person at City Hall. Those interested may also contact planning staff in person, by email, or over the phone to obtain a copy of the reports. Accommodations for alternative methods of viewing or obtaining the recommendation reports are available upon request. Please note that the zoning bylaw currently in effect is the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended, which will henceforth be referred to as the zoning bylaw. Our first and only application is consent application B1225PC for the land municipally known as 43 Colborne Street. The owner, Jacob O'Barrick, is requesting for consent to sever for the purpose of creating a new residential lot. The subject parcels are shown as parts 1 and 2 in the proposed sketch, where part 1 is to be retained for an existing use, and part 2 is to be created for a future residential use. Given the recommendation report, planning staff recommend that the respective consent application be granted, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report dated December 5th, 2025. That concludes correspondence for this application.
Thank you. Is the applicant or the agent for the applicant here listening? Very good. You can go to the podium on my right. There should be a little red button in the middle there. Push the button. Is there anything further you'd like to add at this time?
No.
Very good, thank you. Any questions of the applicant? Just if you could just stay up to any questions of the applicant this evening? If committee members not seeing any. Is there any members of the public that wish to speak to this application this evening? Not seeing any. So with that, does anyone have a recommendation? Angie? Sorry. Eric.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, I didn't have a question for the applicant, it was more for staff. So through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, I just noticed that in the conditions, one of the conditions is not to submit the reference plan until a few items are dealt with. And I'm just wondering what the typical reasoning is for that. I haven't seen it before. Usually they're standalone conditions, so just wondering why that is.
I think it's hiding. There you go.
The ball. Sorry, everybody. The ball was hiding it. I think through the chair, in this instance, what we are finding is we've dealt with some of these applications in the past where there have been some servicing issues or other issues that were identified later on in the process that would have essentially rendered the lot non-developable. So we want to make sure that those things are in place before a reference plan gets deposited. Essentially, that it can in fact be serviced and that the services aren't crossing anywhere that would render it unserviceable.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do want to say, I really do appreciate staff in putting that condition in. It's something that I've raised several times, and it was nice to see that be implemented. Yeah, I was just wondering, because like I said, sometimes I've seen it as standalone conditions and whatnot, but I guess it really doesn't matter if it requires that condition that you submit the deposit reference plan after clearing those conditions. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, if I can just provide some further context, I think that staff really did take this into consideration based on the feedback received, and we will be including these standard clauses moving forward, but I can take it back to Eric and Taya and we can see whether it might be more appropriate to put it as a standalone clause or a clause within. But in any case, going forward, it's going to be a standard condition.
Thank you. Any other questions? Angie.
Thank you. Okay, application B 1225 PC, legally known as lots 247, 248, and 249 on Plan 789 in the former township of Humberston, currently in the city of Port Colborne, municipally known as 43 Colborne Street. B1225 PC be granted, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report dated December 5th, 2025.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder to that? Eric? All those in favor? That'll be carried. Thank you. There is a 20-day waiting period, but after that, then the conditions kick in and so on and so forth to clear everything up. But sorry, just yeah.
If I can ask any more questions.
Sure.
So, on the lot, the proposed lot for the new residential property, there's an existing building on there. Those existing buildings, do they have to be removed prior, to severing the lot, or do they have to be removed before getting a building permit?
To complete the requirements of the severance, they have to be removed before you can officially get your severance. It's a condition of the severance.
Is there, I have 2 years?
Yeah. Yeah, there's 2 years to meet all of the conditions, so.
No? Okay. And if it was to pass the 2 years, then what?
So if you don't meet all of the conditions within the 2 years, then you gotta start the process all over again.
All over again, pay all over again, essentially all of that.
Yes. Okay,
All right.
good?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, thank you. All right, so that concludes the applications this evening. Under other business, we have our proposed 2026 Committee of Adjustment schedule. I'll get a mover and a seconder to put it onto the floor. Angie, Eric, questions? For those that happen to see it online, November gets a little dicey because next year's election year. So it looks like you shifted December's a little bit later and moved up December's. Sorry?
It's a bit earlier. I think it's like a week or so earlier.
The December one?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but you moved October a week later too. Yeah. So that way it kind of covers that gap in between. And I believe by moving the December one up earlier, all of these committee members will still be counselors at that point because the shift doesn't happen until I think mid-December or something, right? So that was the purpose of doing that little shift, to give some time to get to a new committee. So with that, any other questions or comments? Eric.
Sir, through your worship, sorry, you through, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair. So used to addressing the mayor, that's why. I thought for some reason that the 18th of November was the last day of council for those who aren't returning, or sometime in November, late November. Can you confirm whether that's the case?
It might be the last day of, or last council meeting, but I don't think the new council gets sworn in until December. So technically, I guess you're councillor until the new council gets sworn in, as far as I know. I think Taya's looking. Gary.
I think, if I remember from the past, that notwithstanding some of us are counselors, here we're Committee of Adjustment members, so its term can be different than the period of council.
Through the chair to Member Beauregard. So judging by the calendar that council had posted in regards to, the clerks had posted for the council meeting schedule for next year, the inaugural meeting is on November the 17th with training to last a couple weeks after that, but the last training session is on December 1st. So I don't think the actual first council meeting should be November the 24th, but if in the event that I guess training runs over, they have a spot for it in December 1st, with the actual first December meeting being the 8th.
So with that being said, if the inaugural meeting is in November, then I know in the past, usually at that meeting is when they started appointing some people. I don't know, because you can't appoint anyone until after that, right? Until you're sworn in. Yeah. So we'll have to see how December goes then.
Yeah, they have to be sworn in, and then the decisions happen, not usually until January meeting. Exactly. The full complement of the new.
Yeah, so we'll have to play that one by ear. Back to Taya.
Through the chair to the chair. We kind of just figured in terms of going back and forth with the clerks for 2026 dates, that if we just moved the October dates later and the December dates earlier, then it would kind of account for any applications missed in November, just because of how squished the dates were together, being that Remembrance Day would have been when the November meeting was. We're off that day. It's literally would have been the day of committee. Then the week after would have been the first meeting back after the inaugural council meeting. That would have been busy for us and the clerks. And then the meeting after that would have been the day after training. So we were just like, okay, you know what? We'll just make sure the dates work out. That way it's not too busy for any department. And then if we need to call a meeting, then we can revisit it.
The only problem is that because 3 of these are counselors, they have to be reappointed by council to sit on the committee. So, but will they have time to do that before?
It should, yeah. We,
So that's the only challenge, is you may not actually have enough committee members. Although, I don't know what your status is, but we could still have two, but we need three for quorum to start the meeting, which is the only challenge that we have. Gary?
Recall, I still think you're allowed to sit on the Committee of Adjustment because of its term. Angie's saying yes, because I recall that's question coming up a couple times. And by the time you get in applications, the council gets orientated. They're usually, committee members are chosen in block with all the other committees. And so they don't make an exception, they haven't made an exception for picking the Committee of Adjustment. So when we choose that, the council of the day will choose the library, all the other committees, and Committee of Adjustment. So I think we're all here, no matter what the results are of the election, until January.
And normally it's the January meeting when you see the.
Yes.
It could be wrong. I mean,
And I will say, every election year, it's always chaos. The next year will be, if I reapply, will be my 5th term sitting on this committee, so. Every time it's always been a wrangling, and usually I've even seen it where the council meeting is on Monday. Back then it was on Mondays. Councilors were appointed on Monday, and we had a Committee of Adjustment hearing on Tuesday with the new councilor sitting on that
time, yeah.
on that committee. So,
I mean, I could say the other thing is if it's true to the election deadline, and one of the three, like, I guess you can rule it that the whole thing dissolves, so even citizen members dissolve, so you have to wait. Or if you lose your seat as a councillor, then there's 3 councillors, you would really only need 1 to be reelected, wouldn't you, Angie?
You're not here as a council.
Exactly, that's,
You're here as a citizen member.
yeah. I'm saying if they counted the council, yeah. I see it the way you do.
I'm pretty sure there's a clause in the Planning Act that councillors only get to serve for the term of council.
Is it? Okay, I haven't seen it.
Committee,
I do believe you.
public citizens go until they're technically replaced.
Replaced, yeah.
Yes,
So for me and you, unless you become a councillor, could just go until you say someone else is going to sit there now and replace us. And then it's passed by a bylaw that you're now committee.
you get the clerks to send
But
us
anyway,
clarity.
we got a little bit of time, so 11 months to figure it out. I'm sure we can come to some resolve by then. So with that, I can't remember, did we vote? Yes, we did, okay. Whew, that's a lot of them. Okay, other business, no, sorry, is there any other business? Not seeing any? Okay, approval of the minutes of the November 19th committee meeting. Mover and a seconder, Eric, and I'll put Gary on there because I forgot Gary the whole meeting so far. Any questions or comments? All those in
Get my
favor?
hand up fast enough.
That'll be carried. And with that, I'd like to wish everyone happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. And we'll stand adjourned.